Hello, welcome back to another episode of Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. A special welcome as well to Winter, because you've certainly made your presence known this week, and I think going to continue making your presence known as the weeks go on. Some big scores, some surprising scores, and some first scores back from injury. I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. So, in today's short, sharp episode, we are going to be looking at all the results in the WSL this weekend, as we always do, as well as the table standings. For once, the championship looks pretty much the exact same as last week, and the only reason that is because it didn't play. We will then chat through Sophie's standout moment of the week as well. This is your reminder. And finally, we will look ahead to the international break because the Nations League is back and it kicks off at Wembley for England on Friday. If you don't already, make sure you subscribe to our podcast. Wherever you listen to your podcasts, you can also subscribe on YouTube. Give us a like if you like. And leave a review as well. We've had a couple of nice reviews. So thank you very much to those of you who have given us 5 stars and have given us reviews. Really appreciate it. Okay, firstly, we hope you enjoyed our Champions League episode, which we finally got out. Hopefully it felt like you were with us in our pocket in Bran and then back at Stamford Bridge as well. We will have another one of those out in December when the Champions League comes back.
Then we're going to Lisbon.
Yes. The thing is, we always say the team, we're like, we're going to Benfica. And then we're like, where is that? No, Lisbon.
And then we're off to Hacken as well.
Hacken, yes, in Gothenburg.
Lots to do, lots of travelling to come.
Yes, and we will of course be taking you with us. Audio, what's the word?
I don't know.
Audioing? Orally. No, orally is orally. Hourly. There you go. Jesus. Okay, let's get to the WSL and to the results this weekend. We had Bristol City 0, Manchester United 2, an own goal, and Paris with a cracker as well there. Chelsea 5, Leicester 2. LJ got 2 of those. Sam Kerr, Agie Beaver Jones again, and Rantalat and Tierney for Leicester. Liverpool 4, Brighton 0. Bonner, new mum, Shanice van der Sanden, congratulations. Holland and Hogue getting the goals there. Arsenal 3, West Ham 0. with a beautiful goal, and Beth Mead with 2, because getting your first goal back isn't enough, you got to get your second as well. Aston Villa 1. I forgot to write down who they were playing, even though I know who they were playing. Everton 2. I really don't help myself with these things, do I? Patton own goal, and then Daly with her goal as well, and Bjorn as well scoring the penalty. Man City 7, Spurs 0. Bunny Shaw with the hat-trick. 14-minute hat-trick or something like that? Ridiculous. Hemp, Jill Ward and Coombs with 2. I always like to, keep myself on my toes by sometimes either leaving out the goal scorers or leaving out the opposition, which is always helpful.
Checking your memory.
Yeah, and it's not always great. I couldn't even remember the word hourly. Bristol City versus Manchester United. So I was listening to this on the way to my game, and it seemed Bristol were putting in a pretty good fight. And firstly, I want to congratulate them. They got, over 14,000 at Ashton Gate. Brilliant. Well done. Sophie and I were speaking about this, was it yesterday or was it on our live? It's always like a bit of a risky thing, right? When you're putting on a game in your main stadia, you want to get a big crowd, and it's like, do we go with a fixture where we think we might get some points, or do we go with a fixture where we think the opposition will really help bring in the numbers as well? And it's always a little bit risky, but actually they put on a really good display against Manchester United.
I don't think it's risky.
Of course you don't. You always have a different opinion to me. Go on.
I don't think it's risky. I think if you're trying to build an audience, you have to bring in the big teams, and they're going to sell the most tickets. It's just natural marketing.
Yeah. And you say that, but not everyone gets something
I think,
right,
as you say, like, as long as they put in a performance, yes, they lost 2-0, but and it was the same with the Arsenal game where they lost 2-1. They both put in a performance both times, and that makes the kind of difference. It's not really about them winning or losing, I guess. In terms of whether they retain a crowd, it's more about, like, as long as they can see they're fighting for them, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I was a little worried for Bristol initially. I thought if a ruthless United came out, they might be in trouble. But that if they could hold their own in the first half, then it might be a different story, and they did that.
Yeah, I think with Bristol, I don't know, like, I've seen some narratives, I guess, that so far this season, that they're definitely they don't have a hope, and they're definitely going to be sent down. And yeah, they are massively the underdogs. So, in terms of resources, in terms of coming up from the championship, we know that there's a gap that exists there. But I do think Lauren Smith recruited really, really well. I think bringing in like Megan Connolly, in Amy Rogers as well, did really well in the Championship last year. Abby Harrison is not a Championship striker, she's a WSL striker. When she gets back to full fitness, she will be flying. I think they've got some really, really good young talent, and I think I read that their average starting lineup age was 24 years old, which is like one of the lowest in the league, I think. So young players, and the thing is, they might not have the experience, but young players will fight for you. And what she seems to have done in the short time that they've had so far is really get them drilled. So yesterday against Manchester United, on Sunday against Manchester United, they had, a pretty much really solid, compact, low block. And then you just had Abby Harrison running the lineup front. She looked a bit isolated at times, but every single player knew exactly what they were supposed to do, and they were filling in when United broke through their press. They were really frustrating United. And yes, Olivia Clark as well. The last line of defence was really good as well. So I think it's, they're showing signs that they can compete at this level. And in all honesty, playing against Manchester United is not where they're going to stay up.
Yeah, and actually, I don't think it's
bonus, right?
I don't think it's as written in the stars. I don't know what the negative version of written in the stars is, because being relegated is not a nice thing to be written in the stars, is it? But what I'm trying to say is, I don't think it's as clear cut yet. I mean, West Ham are on 4 points as well. And they have to play that reverse fixture again. You're seeing performances, and Lauren Smith speaks a lot about performances. So does Rhiannon Skinner, because they're not being totally dominated, if you know what I mean. They're not being absolutely
battered. It's the same with Everton as well. So
there are a lot of positives to take away. They were very unlucky with the opening goal, because Olivia Clark had been excellent in goal, and it was a wicked deflection. And then there was just that 5-minute window. Then they conceded a second, a great goal from Paris. She's having a stormer at the moment. But yeah, I think a lot of positives, for Bristol to take away. And actually, Mark Skinner praised post-match how difficult Bristol made it for them.
Yeah, I think the problem is, like, when you get deflected a goal like that, it makes your life harder, because then you feel like something's kind of against you. And it will, like, you've worked so hard for 50 minutes and then something like that happens and it can shake you a bit. And maybe that's the reason why the second goal came so quickly afterwards. I think United always had quality. We know that. I do think big shout out for Ella, because her second half performance was really, really strong. She was starting to get into the spaces. She got the 2 assists for the goal. She should probably have had a goal herself. It was ruled out for offside. I'm not so sure about that. And I think we're starting to see an Ella Toone that we haven't seen for a good few months come alive and re-energise this Manchester United side. So she's becoming pretty integral to them. So I would have actually put her down as one of my players of the match.
There you go. Well done, Ella. Next to Chelsea 5, Leicester 2. You were at this one, Soph. Does the score reflect the game?
First half, no. Second half, no.
So overall, no.
Overall, no.
But thanks for breaking it down.
No. But second half, more so than, I guess, the first half. First half, I was so worried for Leicester, because I literally just sat in my seat. The whistle blown, and suddenly Lauren James was through on goal. It was a really bad pass back. Well, she played the wrong pass, Sam Tierney, and it went back, and James was just sitting on Julie Tibble's shoulder and was just like, she's got the pace. Yeah. And as soon as she's away from you. She's not going to miss those. And then to concede again, 3 minutes later. And that was unfortunate as well, because Janine Leitzig made a huge save off Lauren James, but like parried it straight onto Nevin. And there was just neither of them could do anything about that situation. But before they knew it, they were 2-0 down. And when I was like, oh no, like, hyping them up all week, and now it's going to be 8-0, and but it wasn't, and they rallied. And
here's the rabbit. Go on.
And they rallied, and they found a way to get back into the game. And one of my goals of the weekend is definitely it's a move from Lena Petterman in the midfield to set up Jutta Rantala for that first goal, and I just loved the way that Petterman dropped deep, turned past the defender with like just a dip of the shoulder, and then fed the perfect ball to Rantala as well. So they had resilience, they had some really good chances as well. I was surprised that Willie Kirk didn't start with Hannah Kane, given how much she has been in form and how much she has stretched her play.
You said that to me. You said you felt like they weren't capitalising on the width.
Well, it's an outlet, right? And when you don't have many, like against Chelsea, you're not going to have many outlets.
Yeah.
So, but I thought it was also really interesting in that first half. Emma Hayes said to me afterwards, they only won 30% of their one-on-one duels.
Wow.
And against a team like Leicester, who are built on one-on-one duels, you can't be doing that. And I think they fixed that in the second half. She switched Lauren James and Fran Kirby around a bit, gave them more space and ability to work within the spaces. And yeah, in the end, so Chelsea deserved to win.
Of course,
but Leicester,
I get you.
Leicester probably didn't deserve to be 5-2 either.
I think if you looked at that result and said it was an easy win for Chelsea, that would be the wrong take on the match, is basically what you're saying. Fair enough.
And you know that in the second half, Lauren James got her second goal. It was a brilliant finish. And then the Agie Beaver Jones one, shout out to Agie, by the way. 5th goal in 5 WSL appearances. Incredible.
Yeah, and she's coming on as a sub as well.
Yeah,
so like her minutes per goal must be insane.
But also her shots per goal is like ridiculous as well. It's like
her and Rachel Williams
5 scored 9 shots or
fighting
something like
for that.
I can't remember what the exact stat is, but it's a crazy stat. But that came in the 88th minute, and you kind of can understand that a bit more. But if it being 4-2 instead of 5-2, would we have said it was comfortable?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. Fair. For me, this was probably the most surprising result of the weekend, alongside the Man City Spurs game, was Liverpool 4, Brighton 0. Not so much the result in terms of Liverpool winning it, but the scoreline really surprised me. Matt Beard calling it one of their best performances of the season. But Brighton started really well. I was looking back at the highlights, and there was quite a few Brighton chances. Tegan Mike had to pull off some good saves early on, and they would have been really annoyed that they didn't get on the score sheet. But for Liverpool to weather that and then come back at them was really impressive. Shout out as well, as I said, to Shanice van de Sanden scoring, and her baby celebration was very cute because she just recently became a new mum, so congratulations there. But yeah, actually Brighton only had 3 shots on target to Liverpool's 9, so it was those early chances. They didn't take them, and then Liverpool just kind of seemed to run away with the game. And I really liked the ruthless edge to Liverpool's attack, particularly in the second half. They just looked so threatening every time they went forward. And Mel Phillips recognised that, they did obviously change formation in the second half to to try and get back into the game. They were 2-0 down, but it also then left them exposed.
I guess you kind of have to as well.
Yeah.
Like, you have to do something. I was surprised by the result, but I think Liverpool were really good. I think Sophie Roman-Haug was involved in 3 of the 4 goals, and that shows that she's starting to really settle in Merseyside. It took a while for her to get her first goal, I think, but Matt Beard has always said he was never worried about her. She obviously got that injury to the nose where she was wearing the Batman mask, Superwoman mask, for a while, so that will have impacted it as well. And she came in really late, so she's starting to find her feet, not just in terms of getting on the score sheet herself, but setting up 2 goals as well, which I think is really important. And it adds another edge to the Liverpool side with a really direct attacker. Also, they've got Leanne Kiernan back, and I don't know if you saw it. I can't remember which minute it was. It was towards the end of the game, I think. She flicked it on. It was for the last goal.
Yeah, it was.
And she flicked it on down the line and just raced to the byline and cut it back.
Gave it in,
Yeah, and I was just like, that is what Leanne Kiernan's about. And like, when she's fully fit, she's really in her early stages back. When she's fully fit, this is what we can enjoy.
Yeah, for Liverpool to have had a good start with a number of players sidelined with injury, like Shanice van de Sanden didn't start the season either. So for them to be already doing well and then having these players coming back, like Niamh Fahey got back on the pitch as well, which would be great for them. That's really exciting. So yeah, it was interesting. Willie Kirk touched on how he feels maybe his players are...
Willie Kirk.
Yeah, I was going to say, this kind of applies here as well, I think, to Brighton, to that some of his players I think are struggling with the expectation now to be winning games in and around them. And I think maybe that's where we're seeing that lack of consistency in the middle of the table, is that now teams who are pulling off surprise results, you've got Brighton who got more points out of this block than maybe they were expecting to, then not actually potentially winning the games that maybe more people would expect them to win.
I think it's also natural. Like, I think it's a kind of trap we all fall into season after season, where a team does really well and then we suddenly expect them to be world beaters and beating the top teams in the league. And actually it's going to be progress. And I spoke to Willie Kirk about it yesterday, and because I was asking him, it had been just over a year since he took over the job, and I was asking what he'd met, like, was his reflections on the kind of that. And he was like, we've gone from, in 12 months, from being a relegation team to not even mentioning relegation this season.
Yeah.
And for us, it's about building those, it's building slowly. So it's making sure you're not in that relegation battle. Next stop is to make sure you're a top 6 team, top half of the table team. And then you can push on, because we know Leicester have investment. Like, they have support and investment.
But it takes time.
But it takes time, and it's not going to happen overnight. And they also don't have the kind of investment that, say, Chelsea maybe do, where they can just go and buy anyone they want to. They have to be
someone who's prepared to play at that level straight away.
Yeah, they have to be pretty strategic about it, and it means he's going into the Nordic markets and getting Rantler, and maybe we won't see the best of. She looks really good. Maybe we won't see the best of her this season, but like,
it's a long term.
You're already seeing what she can do.
Yeah.
So then next season she's going to be even more bedded in with the physicality of the league and all of that. So it's about building and trying not to get. I think our natural instinct is to go too far
Expect
ahead.
a lot, yeah. Tell me, was that question you asked Willie Kirk, was that when you were on one side of the pitch post-match interviewing for Gravity/BBC, or was that when you just sprint across the pitch, get into the press room and do that question for the Guardian?
One.
Right, the second one, okay. Multiple hats.
And I think it made him laugh a bit because I suddenly popped up again. I'd just been on the other side of the pitch.
I actually have more questions.
Asking a different question.
So while you were there, I was at Arsenal 3, West Ham 0. And like your game, maybe the scoreline didn't really fully reflect the game. I think a great first half from Arsenal. They looked really dangerous in the first half. But West Ham had opportunities. So that first goal from Monum early on, beautiful goal, by the way. But like almost immediately, West Ham went down the other end and Agie had such a nice header.
Agonising.
So well directed past the goalkeeper, and it just clipped the post because Innsberger was rooted to the spot, and that could have been then back into it immediately 1-1. But it didn't go in. And I just feel like it could have been a different game then. But then, Beth Mead comes along, and as soon as she picked up the ball and she did a little bit of footwork, I knew she was going to have a pop on goal. She looked so lively during the game. And again, a wonder goal for her first goal back. Absolutely incredible scenes in front of the North Bank as well.
Trademark Mead.
Yeah, and the crowd went wild. It was lovely to see how happy the other players were for her as well. And then, of course, that wasn't enough. She got a second one as well. But then in the second half, I feel like they maybe took their foot off the gas a little bit. And West Ham, I think, were unlucky not to get something back as well. And they hit the post again early in the second half. And they did force Innsberger into some good saves. So I think the second half performance from West Ham was really good. And that was something Rhian Skinner was really happy with, was the second half performance. And I guess that's where teams, when they're playing maybe your top fours and they don't expect to come out with points, if they're coming out with that second half performance was really good, if we play like that against teams in and around us, we should pick up points. That's, I guess, the kind of positives they're going to have to take out.
Yeah, and it's about progressing it to 90-minute performances. Yeah. It's the same with Leicester. Like, they've been putting in really good first half performances, and they haven't quite been able to carry that through to the second half. And the next step for them is to that the difference with West Ham in the game that I saw against Manchester United and the game yesterday. They've been really good in the second half, but the first half is where it gets away from them.
Well, in the game I saw against Aston Villa, they were really good in the first half.
So, like,
and not so much
it's just about making sure, like, 90 minutes is trying to get to that stage. I will also shout out Beth Mead because I think that's incredible. And, when we were at Leicester a couple of weeks back, she did everything but score. She was in the positions, and I think I turned to you and I was like, in 2 weeks' time, those are going in.
I'm glad it was 2 weeks because I was actually there that time.
And 2 weeks' time,
I manifested that goal. I was like, if she could just wait until I'm there, and if she could do it just right in front of me, I positioned myself next to the Arsenal shooting end, in front of the north end, and she celebrated on that side of the goal as well. It was perfect. Okay, we move on to Aston Villa 1, Everton 2. This was a big game for both teams because winning it would put you just that much further away from relegation, and also probably get a team in between you and the other teams for relegation. So it was a big game. They are obviously were close to each other in the table as well. I don't know, I'm not necessarily surprised, I don't think, but I almost think Aston Villa, and maybe I'm wrong, were potentially a little bit complacent in that they'd identified this block where they wanted to start picking up points. They had started to pick up points, and it was almost like the pressure had eased a little bit, and I think maybe eased a little bit too much against Everton. And I have to say, I think Everton were pretty defensively solid as well, and that's an area we've been worried about.
Bjorn was back, wasn't she?
She came on.
Yeah. So I think, progress for Everton, and I do think I'm going to like hold my hands up and say I've been a bit negative about Everton. I think maybe quite rightly at times, but also I do think when you look at the stats, they haven't been as bad as their results suggest. Yeah. So they've done pretty well possession-wise. They're creating chances. They're just not putting them away.
Well, ironically, they had less chances and less possession and less shots on target than Aston Villa, and they won it.
Yeah, but and they were without Martina as well. But I do think it's maybe like you need to look at the bigger picture. And as Brian Sorensen pointed out in pre-match last week, he was like, after 8 games, we had 9 points last season. At the same stage, they've got 8 points. Yeah. So like they're on course to match their Christmas target for last year this season. And they were considered a pretty good team last year. So it might not be like they're shooting up the ladder that we can see, but there's also like context to that. They've had so many injuries. They didn't recruit very well. They lost Gabby George on the last day of the transfer window.
They've had some tough fixtures.
This January window is going to be absolutely huge for them because they need to recruit. I do worry about like the wider thing with the club because of what's happened to them in the Premier League and how that will affect the women's team. But they definitely need to invest in their team. They can't go anywhere without investment. And it's the same thing with West Ham. You know, are they happy to stay...
to coast and not get relegated?
As long as they're not relegated. I don't mean the players. The players want to do well. Rhiannon Skinner wants to do well. But the club as a structure, are they quite happy to say to Rhiannon, don't get relegated, and that's that. And to move up the table these days, you have to be investing.
Yeah. I think it was interesting as well that Brian Sorensen pointed out during the week as well that, you know, you have to look at the fixtures that they've had, you know, and he was kind of like, some teams haven't had to face that many big teams and everyone thinks they're doing great. And I think it was a bit like, shut up, leave us alone. We've had hard fixtures. And they have, to be fair. And I think sometimes that context is needed. Although I don't think much of that context was given to Villa when they started off the season.
But I also do think, that's why I say, like, I do think to some degree it is the correct criticism. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, results do matter. And they haven't been, like, losing to Leicester. They should be considering that they're not that I'm saying Leicester are bad, but they should be. Those are the games that they really have to be winning if they're going to thrive this season.
Villa, though, I feel like they're still struggling to click, which is frustrating because a lot of those players played with each other last season, and that fluidity and kind of almost telepathy that they had last season isn't there yet. So that will be a little bit frustrating, and they'll be really annoyed that they didn't win that game because it's like towards the end as well, after Everton got the penalty and went ahead, it felt like Villa was throwing everything with the kitchen sink, and that's where I was really impressed with Everton's defence to keep them out.
Heather Payne, shout out for her.
Yes,
she had a really good.
She was a thorn in their side. My God, yeah. Okay, we got to move on to Man City 7, Spurs 0. I did not see this coming. Not because I did think Man City would win, but I think the way Spurs have been playing, I didn't expect them to concede so many. I didn't expect them to not score a goal themselves. And also, I mean, I was going to say we've accused Man City of not being clinical. They haven't been clinical this season. That's where they've struggled, I think.
Gareth Taylor has said they haven't been clinical.
Well, there you go. If he said it, we're right. But they've been creating the chances. They've not been creating enough on target. They've not been effective and clinical enough when they have been on target. So last night, 20 shots created, 10 on target, 7 on the goal. Bloody hell, that's a huge number. And Bunny Shaw was unreal.
Yeah. I think, you know, in the first bit of that first half, Tottenham did pretty well, to be honest. They were pressing well. It was quite an even contest, and I did think that they weren't going to have to try and work out how to deal without having the ball as much as they've been used to. You know, they've been pretty much edging, I think, possession stats in their games against teams around them. They've certainly created chances, and I think it was against Leicester last week when they, you know, created 19 chances and got 11 on target. You know, it's been those kind of stats that wasn't a one-off. That's been pretty consistent throughout this season so far. And it's just been a case of not taking those chances. But they just kind of fell away, especially in that second half. And I think that first 2 goals from Bunny Shaw were like just like a hammer to the heart.
The second goal especially was
her movement was just perfect for the header. And then the finishing for the third. And before they knew it, Tottenham. The game was away from them.
Yeah.
And then it's so hard to come back. And what do? Do you try and bank up or do you go all out?
So this is it. That's what Robert Villaham said post-match. You know, he kind of said, like, what do we do? Do we try and stop the bleeding, or do we kind of stick to our style of play? And I respect managers who have brought in a style of play. Spurs have a style of play. Leicester have an identity. They, you know, you can see what they're trying to do. And I respect managers who want to stick to their style of play and that want to not lose their identity when they come up against big teams. And I get that. But then the other part of me thinks sometimes you just need to take the sting out of a game. And if that means banking up for 10 minutes, so that when you've got a team...
I gave you the example, didn't I, of yesterday in the Chelsea-Leicester game. Chelsea were running away with it and they could have had 4. And Janina Leipzig went down. Fran Kirby hit a shot that just dipped over the bar. Leipzig went down.
God, where did she learn that from?
Called on the treatment, called on the physio. Willie Kirk immediately gathered everyone on the side and had a word. And from that moment, Leicester looked like a different team. And it just gave them a minute to calm down.
Take the sting out of the game, especially when City they're in that kind of frame of mind.
And that it reminded me of what Leicester did against Arsenal a few weeks back, is that they didn't do that. And Tottenham reminded me of that because they need to be a bit more savvy, I guess, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, because it just felt like everything Man City touched turned to goals. Lauren Hemp is unplayable at the moment. Like, I don't know how you stop her. And now she's adding more goals to her game. Like, I said this up front, she's one of England's most consistent players.
Yeah, she has been since the summer.
She's having one of her best seasons. And now Bunny Shaw's, scoring everything that comes in front of her. So that's a really lethal. And you've got, I think Chloe Kelly's been excellent as well. So it's a lethal combination. And when it clicks, my God, it clicks.
I think it's also fun for England because you've now got Lauren Hemp, Lauren James, Chloe Kelly, who have always had brilliant attacking instinct. Lauren James is a generational talent, but I've always felt that the product could be higher.
The productivity, you mean?
Productivity.
Yeah.
And all 3 of them are starting to increase their productivity, both in terms of like the assists, but also the goals. Lauren Hemp is scoring, Chloe Kelly's assisting and scoring, and Lauren James is just flying away at the top of the goal scoring chart. She's joint top now with Bunny Shaw and someone else. Martha Thomas, yeah. So you're starting to get inform England players, which we haven't had for a little bit of time. So that's exciting.
It is, especially when the Nations League is coming up and we seem to have players dropping like flies rather than the other way around. But yeah, it was, very, very clinical performance from Man City. What a time for the international break to come, because now it feels like they've gotten into this great rhythm. I hope they maintain it after the international break, because it'll just make for an exciting season and really just continue to heat up the title race. So the table then, Chelsea stay top on 22 points. Arsenal keep at their heels in second on 19. Man City in third on 16. United on 15 in fourth. And then Liverpool close behind on 14 points. Then at the bottom, Bristol are still at the bottom on 4 points. West Ham are on the same, but still have that better goal difference. It's funny we call it a better goal difference because it's just less minus numbers. And then Villa stay above them on 6 points, with Brighton now on 7. So Brighton have kind of been dragged back down a little bit into that because Everton have leapfrogged them. It is now the moment, Sophie, where you have to give me your standout. What stood out for you this? If you can, for those listening.
Yeah, I'll explain. So for me, the standout moment is Shanice van der Sanden's celebration. I just thought it was so cute. And you've seen it, I think, in the men's game, obviously more often when their partners have a baby, and just for that, I just thought the whole team got around her as well when she was doing it, and she was really sweet afterwards. She was like, I just can't wait to go home back to the Netherlands and hold my girl again. So she was hopping on a flight straight back to the Netherlands. And I think it's just wholesome.
Matt Beard said
wholesome, right?
Yeah, Matt Beard said when she came into the meeting after the baby had been born, he said the whole place erupted in applause, and she had the biggest smile on her face, and he was just like, even he was just like, it was just lovely. It was really nice.
Yeah, so that's my moment of the week.
I like that. And you only had one this week, so well done.
I do have another one.
But no. Is it going to be Beth Mead? Is it going to be Bunny Shaw?
No.
What's it going to? Oh, no, I don't know.
I was going to go with Leicester's first goal. I just loved it.
Okay, you're fangirling a little bit over Leicester, I'm not going to lie. Right, we do.
I'm allowed to.
Okay. Every pod. Briefly going to touch on Nations League because it's back. England take on the Netherlands in Wembley on Friday, and then they take on Scotland in Hampton Park on Tuesday. The stakes could not be higher. I'm right in saying England have to win both games and hope that Belgium drop points if they want to top the group and then go on to qualify for the Olympics.
Yeah.
Small task, really, isn't it? Easy stuff.
Easy stuff.
Netherlands, sure, they're easy anyway. They only beat England. And Scotland, only at Hampton Park. God's sake. Which is an interesting one because some of those players could be in contention for the Olympics and it could be the game that decides it. And you've got players then obviously wanting...
This discourse really annoys me.
It does annoy me. They're going to absolutely go out to win. No friggin' question. But it's funny.
It's a funny situation.
It's a weird quirk. Come on, we got to talk about it.
Scotland are only worried about Scotland. No one actually cares about the Olympics until the Olympics happens.
You've heard it here first. No one
cares
about the Olympics.
I mean, with it, no. We care about...
Sack it off. Who cares?
We care about the Olympics, but certainly in England and Scotland, it's not the priority.
Yes. Okay.
And it will be a good thing if it happens. But also Scotland are not going to be they want to stay in group.
So no
League A.
No Aaron Cuthbert on goals or Sandy McKeever missing really easy ones. Okay, sure. Well, we shall see. And it's going to be an interesting one. We'll know by potentially next record whether England are out.
Yeah, but there's also all to play for Scotland because if they don't, they need results to stay up in League A.
England, if they come bottom of the group, could you imagine?
That's not going to happen. Don't talk it into existence.
I'm not talking it into existence.
You are.
We need to discuss the permutations. Jesus, I'm struggling today. It's late, that's why.
So basically for England, if they don't get top spot, you kind of want them to get into the second spot because then they don't have to do anything in February. And you can have the Arnold Clark Cup.
Which we all know and love, want to see back again. And also I'd love to see if England did an Arnold Clark Cup. Could we get Ireland in?
Ireland won't be playing either, so...
Oh my God, that'd be great. I'd love that. Anyway, okay, now we're speaking things into existence. Let's stop. Okay, so we'll have plenty to talk about next Monday. Am I right in saying next Monday? But until then, if you haven't already, hit subscribe. Leave us a comment as well. We're on all of the social media channels on Girls on the Ball. We've been around long enough that nobody else had that name, thank God. And if there's anything you want us to touch on, do let us know. But until then, we'll see you all next Monday.